Hey, this is Eric here from Wisdom Heart, and I'm talking with my colleague and friend Mike Wang from Mike Wang Coaching. We're going to explore today discipline, what it is, why it matters, what gets in the way of people embracing it. Okay, let's get started.
Great. Thanks for having me, Eric.
All right. I see it as a real challenge for many people who come to the meditation and spiritual path that they want to have the fruits of meditative experience. They want to have the peace. They want to have the capacity to be present. They want to be able to overcome their reactivity. They want that. And it's like, but all those patterns of lack of peace, reactivity have been cultivated actually
Mhm.
in their nervous system. And to recultivate new patterns, something needs to happen. We
Yeah.
could we could call it discipline,
hmm
but there's something to be done.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think it's very
Yeah.
important to get the fruit that you want, you got to cultivate the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that. So as you know, I have a Kung Fu Tai Chi and Qigong studio in Boulder, Colorado. And a lot of people come to me to kind of cultivate this sense of discipline because they have aspects in their lives that they want to improve, whether it be resilience, like you mentioned, or their physical health and well-being. And our culture kind of values this idea of discipline. But I do think that that discussion is a bit nuanced these days because discipline has often been associated with just pushing through at all costs,
Mm,
trying to essentially push through discomfort. And there's value in that, but I think the discussion is a bit nuanced. So I think for my coaching, I have been actually moving away from this idea of discipline as far as like trying to create an external result. So if we're
wow.
focused on health, discipline to around like one's diet, what I find is a lot of people through this idea of discipline tend to get discouraged, right? Like you said, a lot of people want to show up in a certain way. They don't have the capacity to show up in that way. And as a result, their inner experience is one often of guilt or shame or
That's good.
that are more self-limiting.
Mm,
And so for me in the coaching, what I'm really focused on is having people, and you could say it's a sense of discipline, but focus on the inner experience that they want to have or achieve. And so if their external goal is to become more fit, the to me, the actual important aspect is what inner experience or emotion they believe that they will have as
wow.
a result of achieving greater fitness. So for some people, it could mean that they can it's around love, like they have the energy to connect with their children and play with their children. For
Ah,
some people,
yeah,
it could be just feeling a vitality within themselves and in their bodies.
that's nice.
And so I do think that in that sense, that is the most important aspect is staying consistent with that practice.
You're pointing to something I think it's important is that I'll say it that there are levels of needs, there are levels
Mm,
of aspiration. And sometimes the way that we uh, sort of the way that we block ourselves from having the fulfillment that our goal symbolizes is that we're not connected to the real inner experience that we're hoping or imagining that
mm,
achieving that goal will bring us.
hmm hmm
So, like if we take weight loss or fitness, there's goodness and truth and beauty in fitness. It's a
hmm
wonderful thing. But what is the deeper call? What is the deeper aspiration
mm,
that I like when I'm fit? What will that bring me?
hmm
That's even more important. than being fit. You
Yeah.
know, not that fit isn't important.
Yeah.
It's like, but what will it bring me that is even more important?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's a,
and
yeah,
yeah, and when we connect with that why, essentially, the outer results, from my perspective, like take care of themselves. So if we bring, let's say, joy to cultivating our fitness, then fitness will be almost like an effortless result of that.
it'll
Uh,
be effortless in the sense, I think,
yeah.
of the effortless of trying to overcome
hmm
yourself
hmm
structure.
Yeah.
And that's where discipline comes, that's where the challenge of discipline for many people, I think, comes in, is because it's like there's a part of them, the way I think of it is, you know, there's a part of them that says, you must do this. And there's a part of them that's like saying,
hmm
you can't tell me what to do, you know? And it's kind of like at some points, like when we write down our goal, it's the part of us that goes, I must be fit. And then when
hmm
we enter into the activity without having had uh, a deeper why, as you're saying, what happens is no, then the part of us that goes, you can't tell me what to do. It's like
hmm
on the drive to the gym, that one's in the driver's seat, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, we're turning into the ice cream store now.
Yeah.
You know, and the other one's like, no, no, you can't,
Yeah.
you must,
Yeah.
you can't tell me what to do. And
hmm
that freezes the inner structure, and that's the basis of the business model for gyms, because they know these two parts will allow
hmm
more people to sign up for the gym than
Yeah.
will actually show up to do it, because this part will stop them, right?
Yeah.
And there's a deeper place to go to that that is like bigger than and more profound and more fundamental than the conversation between these two competing elements.
hmm
And I think people get stuck at discipline at that level. And rather than resolve it by discovering that source that you're speaking of, that deeper intent,
hmm
they just abandon the whole thing.
Yeah. And so you mentioned it earlier in a way, when we abandon this idea of fitness or whatever our goal is, to me, it's actually a direct result of our capacity to focus, our capacity to consciously direct focus.
Yeah,
And so in those moments when, oh, should I choose ice cream or should I choose something that will make me feel better later? uh, it's in that moment where we are constantly making these refinements to stay connected with that deeper vision that we have for ourselves.
that's beautiful. In the moment, that's a really important piece. In the tradition, the meditative traditions, there's this expression that says, short moments of clarity repeated many times is the awakening
Mm,
path. And
mhm,
it's, so whether it's the fitness path or the awakening path or the financial security path, whatever it might be,
mhm,
you're pointing to that moment of,
mm,
with the beautiful moment when the conflicting voices arise, and that's the capacity to notice that and to return attention something wholehearted that you really
mhm,
care deeply about.
mm.
Then you don't have to be in the argument that is not actually going anywhere.
Yeah,
All those two parts know how to do is argue.
yeah.
That's it. Let's go
Eh,
back to this aspiration. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned something very important in the moment, because I talk a lot about that in my coaching, because I think what many people perceive as being in the moment, their focus is actually on the past or
Yes.
what's immediately in front of them. So
Mm.
they might feel like, oh, I'm freely choosing, to eat ice cream right now
Yeah.
or to not
Yeah.
eat ice cream right now, but in reality they're based off past conditioning or
Yeah.
past events and
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
uh Whereas what you were saying around the word wholeheartedly about what they actually aspire to is true presence in a way, because
Yeah.
that comes
Yeah.
from a love-based state,
Yeah.
uh a love-based experience that they want for themselves.
That's beautiful. And it reframes discipline in a
hmm
funny way. not funny, in a beautiful and paradoxical way, it says, it's how I'm hearing it, is that discipline, when we return our attention to that deep commitment, we're returning our attention to something that is already whole.
Mm. Hmm.
And also, we're now willing to move through time, deepening our capacity
Hmm.
to stay with it. So
Hmm.
there's still a developmental dimension to it. There's still a work, if you will, dimension to it, but it's whole and complete. Every step of the way, it's whole, but it's
Hmm.
not fulfilled in its my capacity to live it. That
Hmm.
that goes through time. So that
Hmm.
discipline still is requires me to engage, but it requires me to engage from a place of wholeness.
Mm. Hmm.
How does that sound?
Beautiful. Yeah.